Hello, everyone. I'm Dane.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the Malazan Brotherhood podcast, home of the most professional digressors. Yes, after last week, I think we can reclaim that title.
Oh, boy. Today, we will be discussing Book 1, Chapter 3 of House of Chains, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and is most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Some of you out there might have a coffee cup that is too big, and it's the size of a cusser, and someone may criticize you for your choice of this coffee cup, but you can feel secure in your choice as you read through these books.
Lord. We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those who have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
I have to give a little context to that. I was criticized for my choice of a mug a moment ago.
This is a criticism.
Fresh criticism.
A fresh wound.
Yeah. I am not in any way insecure about my choice of mug. I love this mug.
That's what you think.
Today's episode contains sorcerous violence and thus is not suitable for children.
Our show is listener supported. If you would like to support us, we would really appreciate that. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we are posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we'd really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. All right, Chapter 3, Part 2. In a strange way, the discipline of maintaining the illusion of mindlessness proved Karsa's greatest ally in remaining sane. Days then weeks lying supine, spread-eagled, and chained down to the bed of a wagon was a torture unlike anything the Teblor could have imagined possible. Vermin crawled all over his body, covering him in bites that itched incessantly. He knew of large animals of the deep forest being driven mad by black flies and midges, and now he understood how such an event could occur. He was washed down with buckets of icy water at the end of each day, and was fed by the drover guiding the wagon, an ancient, foul-smelling Nathi who would crouch down beside his head with a smoke-blackened iron pot filled with some kind of thick, seed-filled stew. He used a large wooden spoon to pour the scalding, malty cereal and stringy meat into Karsa's mouth. The Teblor's lips, tongue, and the insides of his cheeks were terribly blistered, the feedings coming too often to allow for healing.
This is the worst. My wife and I do this way too often, knowing the food is too hot, but unable to be patient enough for it to cool off. And this is self-inflicted. Imagine somebody doing this to you, you're chained down. I don't know if it's meant to be torture, but it certainly sounds like torture.
Oh, yes. A couple things stick out to me here. Addressing the blistering of the mouth situation, I have personal experience with this. My mother-in-law made some turnovers in the oven one time. I could not wait to have one of these things. I had let it cool for like 5 minutes.
That's enough.
That's enough. The outside was fine.
Uh-huh.
Little did I know that the inside was literally molten lava. And I take this big bite. The inside lava attaches itself to the roof of my mouth. And there was nothing I could do.
Nope.
Blistered the entire top of my mouth. I've never experienced anything like that before.
Yep.
It was stuck in place. No way to get it off. That was crazy.
Yeah. Anytime you get those foods that, like you said, can cool on the outside or the top, but the inside is still retaining all the heat, it is a nightmare. Many desserts, slices of pizza.
If you're not careful, Jamaican beef patties.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. My wife makes amazing Jamaican beef patties.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about the ones off the food truck, like when we used to work together at the dealership.
No, right.
Those are like the microwave ones that you can get at the grocery store. Nah, man. Like, I'm talking legitimate.
Yeah.
It's got pick-a-pepper sauce in it and everything. Delicious.
It's a funny thing if I let the food sit and cool off normally, my wife is like, what are you doing? You're not hungry? You don't want to eat? It's like, I'm trying to wait.
Oh, so you're being pressured to be enthusiastic to eat the meal.
I say, no, I'm trying to let it cool off. And then she digs in and burns her mouth. And I said, what? Anyway.
The other thing here was the bugs.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine what this would be like. Without the ability to scratch anything, and they're just crawling all over you. Literally torture.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Ugh.
2 quick stories.
Okay.
One, you don't watch World Series, but there was, I don't remember how many years ago it was now, but in the World Series, there was a midge hatch that happened during the game, And since it was at night and all the lights from the stadium were nice and bright, the midges just came in, it seemed like millions, and they were swarming all over the players. And some of the players were able to deal with it just fine. And a couple of the players were having absolute breakdowns, like trying to swat them away and bat at them, and they just could not get it together.
Let me ask the question. Were the people that were able to handle it people that immigrated from Cuba and other countries, and then the white boys that grew up in America couldn't handle it?
It could have been a mixed bag. It could have been just about anybody. I don't remember the details enough, other than I think it was one of the pitchers was just having a real rough time of it, kept stepping off the mound, couldn't handle it. Second one, I think that there's a South American tribe, maybe? It's like the test of manhood, and they have like a mitt that's full of like bullet ants. And they have to put their hand inside the mitt with the bullet ants.
The Gamjabar.
Is that what it's called?
No. Oh. It's like from Dune, when they put his hand to test if he's an animal or not. Yes. I mean, that's basically the same thing, right? Can you control yourself under extreme pain?
I think that's what it is. But then the ant poison causes hallucinations and stuff like that. I don't know. Sounds brutal. I would pass on that one.
Okay, jumping again. So the Gamjabar test is to test whether you're a human or an animal.
Okay.
My middle son has a tendency to get a little wild when he was younger. He's more chill now.
The dragon?
Yes. You know exactly. You always heard him in the background when we're on Discord or something. Okay, so the dragon, we'll call him, one time was acting crazy. And I said, if you're going to act like an animal, I'm going to put you in the backyard so you can act like an animal. And he goes, I'm not an animal. And he got so mad. I mean, it's one of the quotes up there with, I got water in my systems, or I don't love that. That's like one of his things that he invented, you know.
Your kids have some good ones. Your daughter, finish him. Wasn't that one of them?
So we used to do this thing called Daddy Robot Ride, where she'd get on my shoulders and pretend I was a mech. And I'd have my hands up and she was using it as controls. And then we'd be like, quote unquote, shooting at the boys, and then she would be like, finish him in a 3-year-old voice, you know.
Great stuff.
Hearing it come from a voice of that age, the savagery, and she has lived up to that reputation. She's still a killer, man, through and through. Meals became an ordeal, which was alleviated only when Torvald Nam talked the drover into permitting the Daru to take over the task, ensuring that the stew had cooled sufficiently before it was poured into Karsa's mouth. The blisters were gone within a few days. The Teblor endeavored to keep his muscles fit through sessions, late at night, of flexing and unflexing, but all his joints ached from immobility, and for this he could do nothing. At times his discipline wavered, his thoughts traveling back to the demon he and his comrades had freed. That woman, the Forkasol, had spent an unimaginable length of time pinned beneath that massive stone. She had managed to achieve some movement, had no doubt clung to some protracted sense of progress as she clawed and scratched against the stone. Even so, Karsa could not comprehend her ability to withstand madness and the eventual death that was its conclusion. Thoughts of her left him humbled, his spirit weakened by his own growing frailty in these chains, in the wagon bed's rough-hewn planks that had rubbed his skin raw, in the shame of his soiled clothes, and the simple, unbearable torment of the lice and fleas. Torvald took to talking to him as he would a child or a pet. Calming words, soothing tones, and the curse of talking too much was transformed into something Karsa could hold on to, his desperate grip ever tightening. The words fed him, kept his spirit from starving. They measured the cycle of days and nights that passed. They taught him the language of the Malazans. They gave him an account of the places they traveled through. After Culvern Crossing, there had been a larger town, Nisano Moat, where crowds of children had clambered onto the wagon, poking and prodding him until Shard arrived to drive them away. Another river had been crossed there, onward to Malibridge, a town of similar proportions to Nisano Moat. Then, 17 days later, Karsa stared up at the arched stone gateway of a city, Tanis, passing over him. And on either side, as the wagon made its rocking way down a cobbled street, huge buildings of 3, even 4 levels. And all around, the sounds of people, more lowlanders than Karsa had thought possible. Think about this from his perspective. He's pretty sheltered. Silver Lake is about the extent of his experience with these lowlanders. Now you're seeing civilization, never having seen anything like that before. That would be quite a shock, I think, going from the huts in the forest and living in these separated tribes to this mass of people in one area and these huge buildings that they built. Complete culture shock.
I thought the same thing, just because exactly what you said, their memory of Silver Lake was of a small little village, and to see that grown up and then now going through what sounds like multiple towns, and they're all lowlanders, I agree that it's got to be mind-blowing for him.
Also, the fact that his humbling is beginning stuck out to me here. The soiling yourself, that's one thing, but he has nothing to do but sit there and think, unless Torvald is talking to him, and probably reevaluate life choices. You could see how this would be really transformational for somebody as they're going through this.
And having to play this game, I've lost my mind, and maybe he's actually losing his mind at the same time, or maybe he thinks he's losing his mind. That's got to be pretty hard. All well chained down.
Tanis was a port, resting on tiered ridges rising from the east shore of the Malin Sea, where the water was brackish with salt, such as was found in a number of springs near the Rathid borderlands. Yet the Malin Sea was no turgid, tiny pool. It was vast, for the journey across it to the city called Malanteus consumed 4 days and 3 nights. It was the transferring onto the ship that resulted in Karsa being lifted upright, unwheeled wagon bed included, for the first time, creating a new kind of torture as the chains took his full weight. His joints screamed within him and gave voice as Karsa's shrieks filled the air, continuing without surcease until someone poured a fiery, burning liquid down his throat, enough to fill his stomach, after which his mind sank away. When he awoke, he found that the platform that held him remained upright, strapped to what Torvald called the main mast. The Daru had been chained nearby, having assumed the responsibility for Karsa's care. The ship's healer had rubbed salves into Karsa's swollen joints, deadening the pain. But a new agony had arrived, raging behind his eyes. Torvald murmured, "Hurting? That's called a hangover, friend. A whole bladder of rum was poured into you, lucky bastard that you are. You heaved half of it back up, of course, but it had sufficiently worsened in the interval to enable me to refrain from licking the deck, leaving my dignity intact. Now we both need some shade, or we'll end up fevered and raving, and believe me, you've done enough raving for both of us already, fortunately in your Teblor tongue, which few, if any, aboard understand. We've parted ways with Captain Kindly and his soldiers, for the moment. They're crossing on another ship. By the way, who is Dalus? No, don't tell me. You made quite a list of rather horrible things that you've got planned for this Dalus, whoever he or she is. Anyway, you should have your sea legs by the time we dock in Malanteus, which should prepare you somewhat for the horrors of Meningao Ocean, I hope. Hungry? When I was reading this, I had originally thought, man, I can't believe he's still going on about Dalus, and she's really lodged into his mind pretty deeply. But then the thought came to me that he's only about roughly 18 in our years. And I was thinking back to what it's like to have a first love or some type of obsession about somebody at that age. You know, oh, there's only one person in the world for me. And his world was very small. And for whatever reason, he latched onto Dalus. So I was thinking it kind of makes sense that he's still going on and on about this, because if that was who in his little tribe, the person that he chose, and that's the only person that he saw around, and he's like obsessed about getting that one. Okay, he's still not over that whole situation. You know, it's going to take time. Some people, it's faster than others. And I guess with Karsa, there's the tendency to think that he's really callous because of all the killing and all the other activities that he's been involved in. There are aspects of his personality, as we've seen with his view on slavery, for example, where he's not just monolithic. So maybe this is another one of those more humanizing parts of him where we can see how he is like a lot of other people, in that he fell really hard for somebody, got rejected by them, and is still going through the 6 stages of grief to get through some type of conclusion to that. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I am Jack's inflamed sense of rejection.
Okay.
But I kind of wonder if he hadn't discovered that Bairoth and Dalus were together, would he feel so strongly? If she was a girl in the village and she was unclaimed, she was just a single girl, would he be thinking about her the same way? Or do you think it's even worse, jealousy creeping in because he knew that he and Bairoth were together, that it somehow stings him a little bit deeper?
That probably adds to it. I don't think he knows that she's pregnant right now. That is kind of making it harder for me to answer as well. Say he didn't know that she had signed off on Bairoth being the one beforehand. He'd probably still be all about it. He's going to come back, impress her, and she's going to be his. Separately, if she wasn't pregnant and he comes back, I do wonder how that would play out. But then finally, if she had a child from Bairoth and he comes back, how does that situation play out? Karsa had mentioned the premarital or the official bond between the male and the female in the tribe, if they're sleeping around beforehand, it was frowned upon in that tribe.
Mhm.
So I think it's more of a conservative viewpoint in that you should keep it on lockdown until... Did they mention wife before? I can't remember if they had some type of...
I don't recall hearing any
Okay.
kind of talk apart from like Karsa's father and Karsa's mother as far as like marriage. That's the only reference that I recall. But anybody else in the tribe, I don't think so.
It's more of a conservative way of looking at relationships, right? Where you're not sleeping around before you are bound to somebody
Mm-hmm.
for a longer term relationship.
Right.
So I'm curious in those different scenarios how he would act.
Well, I wonder if it comes up in the other trilogy.
The Witness trilogy.
Yeah. If there's any new information of him coming back to the village and potentially seeing Dalis pregnant or anything like that, or if he's off doing other stuff, I'd be curious to find more information out about that.
Yeah. And I also heard that I think it's going to be 4 books now,
Okay.
which is... It's exciting, but it means I have to wait another 6 years probably before I get to read it.
Hopefully
Not complaining about how long it takes for the master to do his work. I'm just saying,
Right.
I really want to read these, and I just can't dive into them right now.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you start reading, it'll take you a year or something to get through
Take
all of
it
them.
easy.
I-
No.
Okay.
4 books? Come on now. It's at least 4 months. You know,
All
at
right.
the time and the rate that I read now. Well, I say that. I read Project Hail Mary, which is the same guy that wrote The Martian.
Mm-hmm.
My wife got that for me. I couldn't put it down. I read it in like a week.
Wow.
It was just that good. Can't recommend it enough if you like The Martian. It's a good story.
Okay.
The crew, mostly Malazans, gave Karsa's position wide berth. The other prisoners had been locked below, but the wagon bed had proved too large for the cargo hatch, and Captain Kindly had been firm on his instructions not to release Karsa in any circumstances, despite his apparent feeble-mindedness. Not a sign of skepticism, Torvald had explained in a whisper, just the captain's legendary sense of caution, which was reputedly extreme even for a soldier. The illusion seemed to have, in fact, succeeded. Karsa had been bludgeoned into a harmless ox, devoid of any glimmer of intelligence in his dull eyes, his endless, ghastly smile evincing permanent incomprehension. A giant, once warrior, now less than a child, comforted only by the shackled bandit, Torvald Nam, and his incessant chatter. Once in the darkness, as the ship rolled on towards Malanteus, Torvald muttered, "Eventually they'll have to unchain you from that wagon bed, but maybe not until we arrive at the mines. You'll just have to hold on, Karsa Orlong, assuming you're still pretending you've lost your mind, and these days I admit you got even me convinced. You are still sane, aren't you?" Karsa voiced a soft grunt, though at times he himself was unsure. Some days had been lost entirely, simply blank patches in his memory, more frightening than anything else he'd yet to experience. Hold on, he did not know if he could.
This sounds like it has to be exceptionally hard for Karsa, since, as he pointed out earlier, the Teblor don't keep slaves or prisoners, so his contact with this is minimal or even non-existent. And he had said that he was aware of the idea of slaves, but it makes me think when people take wild animals as pets, and oftentimes you see that they go crazy trying to get away. They're just not used to being contained in any way, and the mind actually goes. It's what it seems like to me anyway.
I think for someone that is used to having wide open freedom to be able to roam the forests, and they're less used to being contained in a small house or something like that, it would be even worse than someone that, say, lives in a studio apartment. They sit in front of their computer watching streamers or playing games all day. You know, they're used to just being in the same space all the time. It would still be really bad for them, don't get me wrong. But for someone that is used to being able to move around in a wide space, I think it would be doubly as bad.
Mm-hmm.
The wild animals going into something like the zoo, for example, I agree with you.
Yeah.
You see the bears pacing the same place, or like what's really sad, at least the zoos, it's not great, but the enclosures that you see that are bigger, that have some level of places to hide and a little bit more room to move around compared to those concrete boxes you see somewhere
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like bars at the front, the rest of it's concrete, hard floor, no plants. It's jail.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yep. I agree.
The city of Malanteus had the appearance of having been 3 separate cities at one time. It was midday when the ship drew into the harbor, and from his position against the mainmast, Karsa's view was mostly unobstructed. 3 enormous stone fortifications commanded 3 distinct rises in the land, the center one set back further from the shoreline than the other 2. Each possessed its own peculiar style of architecture. The keep to the left was squat, robust, and unimaginative, built of a golden, almost orange limestone that looked marred and stained in the sunlight. The center fortification, Hazy through the wood smoke rising from the maze of streets and houses filling the lower tiers between the hills appeared older, more decrepit, and had been painted, walls, domes, and towers in a faded red wash. The fortification on the right was built on the very edge of the coastal cliff, the sea below roiling amidst tumbled rocks and boulders. The cliff itself rotted, pock-marked, and battle-scarred. Ship-launched projectiles had battered the keep's sloped walls at some point in the past. Deep cracks radiated from the wounds, and one of the square towers had slumped and shifted and now leaned precariously outward. Yet a row of pennants fluttered beyond the wall. Around each keep, down the slopes and in the flat, lowest stretches, buildings crowded every available space, mimicking its particular style. Borders were marked by wide streets, winding inland, where one style faced the other down their crooked lengths. 3 tribes had settled here, Karsa concluded as the ship eased its way through the crowds of fisher boats and traders in the bay. Torvald rose to his feet in a rustle of chains, scratching vigorously at his snarled beard. His eyes glittered as he gazed at the city. He sighed and said, Malanteus, Nathi, Genabari, and Korivi, side by side by side. And what keeps them from each other's throats? Naught but the Malazan overlord and 3 companies from the Ashok regiment. See that half-ruined keep over there, Karsa? That's from the war between the Nathi and the Korivi. The whole Nathi fleet filled this bay, flinging stones at the walls. And they were so busy with trying to kill each other that they didn't even notice when the Malazan forces arrived. Dujek one arm, 3 legions from the 2nd, the bridge burners, and 2 high mages. That's all Dujek had, and by day's end the Nathi fleet was on the bay's muddy bottom. The Genabari royal line holed up in their blood-red castle were all dead, and the Korivi keep had capitulated.
Dujek and the bridge burners. I'm wondering who the mages are. Could Tashrin maybe be one of them?
I suspect it was some of that cadre we saw at the Siege of Pale. I was originally going to say it might be Nightchill and Bellardan. He was doing some research around Genabaris, which is around this area.
Okay.
Because he had some pages from Gotho's Folly that he found. This was mentioned very early in Gardens of the Moon. It definitely was not Tattersail, because she was assigned to the 2nd after the death of the mage Nidurian in Mottwood. Nidurian might have been one of these, and that's not a name that I was very familiar with because I haven't read the Forge of the High Mage stuff that Esselmont's written, but apparently he's one of the primary characters in that.
Okay.
I think this information came through there because I was like, Nidurian, where did this information come from where he was in Mottwood and he died there and then Tattersail came to replace him?
Okay. So, unclear, I guess, who exactly the mages are.
When he wrote this, maybe that hadn't been established yet. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe they're backfilling now, and who knows what they RP'd when they were playing the game.
Yeah, true.
Maybe it was part of that, too.
Okay.
The ship was approaching a berth alongside a broad stone pier, sailors scampering about on all sides. Torvald was smiling. He said, all well and good, you might be thinking. The forceful imposition of peace and all that. Only, the city's fist is about to lose 2 of his 3 companies. Granted, replacements are supposedly on the way. But when? From where? How many? See what happens, my dear Teblor, when your tribe gets too big? Suddenly, the simplest things become ungainly, unmanageable. Confusion seeps in like fog, and everyone gropes blind and dumb. A voice cackled from slightly behind and to Karsa's left. A bandy-legged, bald officer stepped into view, his eyes on the berth closing ahead, a sour grin twisting his mouth. In Nathi, he said, the bandit chief pontificates on politics, speaking from experience, no doubt. What with having to manage a dozen unruly highwaymen? And why are you telling this brainless fool anyway? Ah, of course, a captive and uncomplaining audience. Torvald said, well, there is that. You are the first mate? I was wondering, sir, about how long we'd be staying here in Malanteus. The Malazan said, you were wondering, were you? Fine, allow me to explain the course of events for the next day or 2. 1. No prisoners leave this ship. 2. We pick up 6 squads of the 2nd Company. 3. We sail on to Genabaris. You're then shipped off, and I'm done with you. Torvald said, I sense a certain unease in you, sir. Have you security concerns regarding fair Malanteus? The man's head slowly turned. He regarded Torvald for a moment, then grunted and said, you're the one might be a claw. Well, if you are, add this to your damned report. There's Crimson Guard in Malanteus, stirring up the Korivi. The shadows ain't safe, and it's getting so bad that the patrols don't go anywhere unless there's 2 squads at the minimum. And now 2/3 of them are being sent home. The situation in Malanteus is about to get very unsettled. Torvald said, the Empress would certainly be remiss to discount the opinions of her officers. The first mate's eyes narrowed. He said, "She would at that," then strode ahead, bellowing at a small group of sailors who'd run out of things to do. Torvald tugged at his beard, glanced over at Karsa, and winked. He said, "Crimson Guard. That's troubling indeed. For the Malazans, that is."
There's quite a lot happening here. A lot of unrest between all the different tribes, as well as the Malazans and the Crimson Guard. But I'm wondering, what is happening at this point between the Crimson Guard and the Malazans? They were allied with Brood and the Tistandi. That was back in Gardens of the Moon. And I think that timeline seems to be about where we are. Is that right?
Yeah, if we think back, Pale just fell, based on what we found out.
Mm-hmm.
That means the rest of Gardens of the Moon is happening right now. It's probably been, about a month? I think they said 17 days on the wagon, 3 days on the ship. You have loading, unloading. So say roughly a month has passed since the fall of Pale.
Okay.
At that time, Brood and Kalor had mentioned something about the Crimson Guard being busy around the northern areas of Genebakis, sowing the seeds of dissent. And I guess we're seeing the results of that right now.
Okay.
Later in Gardens of the Moon, some of the Crimson Guard show up to help in Darujistan, if you remember. They were there to protect Crocus, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't they save Crocus when they came?
They may have. I don't remember exactly. It's vaguely familiar.
I don't remember specifically. They saved him from some of the assassins or something like that.
Okay.
Either way, they're doing these clandestine operations, it seems like. And then Jorek Sharplance was leading some of the combined forces against the Moranth. If you remember, there was like a big battle, and Kalor was upset that Jorek Sharplance, this guy that's coming in, young guy, apparently real cocky and doing real good, apparently. I remember Kalor complaining to Brood about that in Gardens of the Moon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Days vanished. Karsa became aware once again as the wagon bed pitched wildly under him. His joints were afire as his weight was shifted, chains snapping taut to jolt his limbs. He was being wheeled through the air, suspended from a pulley beneath a creaking framework of beams. Ropes whipped about, voices shouting from below. Overhead, seagulls glided above masts and rigging. Figures clung to that rigging, staring down at the Teblor. The pulley squealed, and Karsa watched the sailors get smaller. Hands gripped the bed's edges on all sides, steadying it. The end nearest his feet dropped further, drawing him slowly upright. He saw before him the mid and foredecks of a huge ship, over which swarmed haulers and stevedores, sailors and soldiers. Supplies were piled everywhere, the bundles being shifted below decks through gaping hatches. The bed's bottom end scraped the deck. Shouts, a flurry of activity, and the Teblor felt the bed lifted slightly, swinging free once more. Then it was lowered again. This time Karsa could both hear and feel the top edge thump against the main mast. Ropes were drawn through chains to bind the platform in place. Workers stepped away then, staring up at Karsa, who smiled. Torvald's voice came from one side. Aye, it's a ghastly smile, but he's harmless, I assure you all. No need for concern, unless of course you happen to be a superstitious lot. There was a solid crack, and Torvald Nam's body sprawled down in front of Karsa. Blood poured from his shattered nose. The Daru blinked stupidly, but made no move to rise. A large figure strode to stand over Torvald. Not tall, but wide, and his skin was dusky blue. He glared down at the bandit chief, then studied the ring of silent soldiers facing him. In Malazan he growled, "It's called sticking the knife in and twisting, and he got every damned one of you." He turned and studied Torvald Nam once more, then said, "Another stab like that one, prisoner, and I'll see your tongue cut out and nailed to the mast. And if there's any other kind of trouble from you or this giant here, I'll chain you up there beside him, then toss the whole damn thing overboard. Nod if you understand me." Wiping the blood from his face, Torvald Nam jerked his head in assent. The blue-skinned man swung his hard gaze up to Karsa and said, "Wipe that smile off your face, or a knife will kiss it. You don't need lips to eat, and the other miners won't care either way." Karsa's empty smile remained fixed. The man's face darkened. He said, "You heard me." Torvald raised a hesitant hand and said, "Captain, sir, if you will. He does not understand you. His brain is addled." The captain shouted, "Bosun!" The bosun said, "Sir." The captain ordered, "Gag the bastard." The bosun said, "Aye, Captain." A salt-crusted rag was quickly wrapped about Karsa's lower face, making it difficult to breathe. The captain said, "Don't suffocate him, you idiots." The sailors said, "Aye, sir." The knots were loosened, the cloth pulled down to beneath his nose. The captain wheeled and said, "Now, what in Mail's name are you all standing around for?" As the workers all scattered, the captain thumping away, Torvald slowly climbed to his feet. Through split lips he mumbled, "Sorry, Karsa. I'll get that off you, I promise. It may take a little time, alas. And when I do, friend, please don't be smiling."
This captain is not messing around. The other soldiers were letting Torvald talk. This guy doesn't want to hear any of it.
I thought the exact same thing. This guy isn't going to let Torvald manipulate their minds at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the distinction between the way they were being treated by the Malazan soldiers versus the sailors here. It was pretty interesting to me. This captain, real hardliner. He's the king of this castle, which is his ship. And he's not, I guess the sailors are a superstitious lot. So Torvald's trying to plant a little seed of doubt in their minds, and he's locking that down from the get-go.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting distinction between the two.
Right. Not letting one little ounce of it seep in. Probably pretty smart from his point of view, I guess.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if Captain Kindly had witnessed the same type of tactics Torvald is taking with his sergeant under him,
Mm-hmm.
if Captain Kindly would have taken a similar approach.
That's
the
a good
soldiers
point.
themselves, maybe they're just not the smartest people.
Maybe not. But you're right. Maybe if it was Kindly instead of Shard or any of the others, maybe he would have done a little bit more to nip it in the butt.
Oh, yeah. He would not be hearing anything about him being a claw
Right.
or any of that.
Right.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Prove it. Sometime in the future, Karsa heard a voice. Why have you come to me, Karsa Orlong, son of Sinig, grandson of Polk? 1 presence, and 6, faces that might have been carved from rock, barely visible through a swirling haze. 1 and 6. Karsa said, I am before you, Urugal, a truth that left him confused. Urugal said, You are not, only your mind, Karsa Orlong. It has fled your mortal prison. Karsa said, Then I have failed you, Urugal. Urugal said, Failed, yes. You have abandoned us, and so in turn we must abandon you. We must seek another, one of greater strength, one who does not accept surrender, one who does not flee. In you, Karsa Orlong, our faith was misplaced. The haze thickened, dull colors flashing through it. He found himself standing atop a hill that shifted and crunched beneath him. Chains stretched out from his wrists, down the slopes on all sides. Hundreds of chains reaching out into the rainbow mists, and at the unseen ends of each one there was movement. Looking down, Karsa saw bones beneath his feet. Teblor, Lowlander. The entire hill was naught but bones. The chains slackened suddenly. Movement in the mists, drawing closer from every direction. Terror surged through Karsa. Corpses, many of them headless, staggered into view. The chains that held the horrifying creatures to Karsa penetrated their chests through gaping holes. Withered, long-nailed hands reached towards him. Stumbling on the slopes, the apparitions began climbing. Karsa struggled, seeking to flee, but he was surrounded. The very bones at his feet held him fast, clattering and shifting tighter about his ankles. A hiss, a susurration of voices through rotting throats. Lead us, war leader. He shrieked.
This made me chuckle a little bit. Karsa shrieked. When I hear someone shrieking, an image of Karsa is not what comes to my mind.
Yeah, I assume that this is everybody he's ever killed. That's a lot of bodies and a lot of bones. I didn't think he had killed that many people.
I didn't either, but this read-through, I'm getting that feeling as well.
They had talked about the chain of souls in the past, but I don't know that Karsa knows about that necessarily. I think we had heard of it either through the Seven talking about it, or the Forkwheel of Sail might, I think, also mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe that's what it is. Karsa is very brave when it comes to battle, but this is very superstitious in nature. You see all these corpses coming up to you, and maybe since this is the first time he's seeing this, he is freaking out a little bit. And if he doesn't understand that this is the result of his actions, I guess you could have this reaction, even if you are brave in other areas.
Yeah. Well, if he's still seems to be chained in this little kind of fever dream or whatever he's got going on, lack of control or agency, your own body, and these apparitions or whatever is coming after you, I could see it being terrifying.
The voices repeated, Lead us, war leader, climbing closer, arms reaching up, nails clawing the air. A hand closed about his ankle. Karsa's head snapped back, struck wood with a resounding crunch. He gulped air that slid like sand down his throat, choking him. His eyes opening, he saw before him the gently pitching decks of the ship, figures standing motionless, staring at him. He coughed behind his gag, each convulsion a rage of fire in his lungs. His throat felt torn, and he realized that he had been screaming, enough to spasm his muscles so they now clenched tight, cutting off the flow of his air passages. He was dying. The whisper of a voice deep in his mind. Perhaps we will not abandon you. Yet. Breathe, Karsa Orlong, unless, of course, you wish to once more meet your dead. Breathe. So I guess that is the confirmation that this is his chain of souls meeting his dead.
That's the feeling that I get. I believe on the first read-through, I was having a little trouble, I think, understanding exactly what's going on. But certainly on this read-through, it seems a lot more clear. I think you're right on the money there.
It is information that is being metered out little by little by different parties. And your first time through, you're probably focused on the larger stuff that's going on. Just the general motions of they're attacking the town, they're releasing the Fork Will of Sail, Karsa's on this journey. But the little details, putting all that together, it would take a very astute reader that is going more methodically through it. Whereas I know on my first read through, I was just excited to see what was happening. It was really interesting to me. It's like a whirlwind of activity. And then only on subsequent read throughs, and then particularly reading through this way, do I get to put all the little details together.
Right. The other thing that I noticed and wonder about is when the seven seem to say, "Why have you come?" They're talking to him in this little fever dream he's got going on. And then they're saying that he failed them. He sees the chains, he sees these apparitions, and then they tell him, maybe we won't abandon you yet. I'm curious, how did they do that 180? Where you failed, we're done with you, to, all right, we won't abandon you quite yet. I'm curious what's going on there. Why the flip?
Yeah, it's not a very secure relationship, is it?
No.
Yeah,
don't get that
I don't know
feeling.
what changed there. I mean, he's shrieking, these things coming up to him, but what changed in that little couple sentences, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Someone snatched the gag from his mouth. Cold air flooded his lungs. Through watering eyes, Karsa stared down at Torvald Nam. The Daru was barely recognizable, so dark was his skin, so thick and matted his beard. He had used the very chains holding Karsa to climb up within reach of the gag, and was now shouting unintelligible words the Teblor barely heard, words flung back at the frozen, fear-stricken Malazans.
I'm wondering how long they've been on the ship at this point then, because it sounds like that's kind of a drastic change for Torvald as well, that his skin has darkened this much and everything. I guess we don't know. There's no real indicator, but it seems like a reasonable amount of time has passed.
I think it's mentioned here briefly. In a second, Torvald's going to say something.
Oh, okay.
And it'll give us some context.
I'm jumping the gun.
Karsa's eyes finally made a note of the sky beyond the ship's prow. There were colors there, amidst churning clouds, flashing and blossoming, swirls bleeding out from what seemed huge, open wounds. The storm, if that was what it was, commanded the entire sky ahead. And then he saw the chains snapping down through the clouds to crack thunderously on the horizon. Hundreds of chains, impossibly huge, black, whipping in the air with explosions of red dust, crisscrossing the sky. Horror filled his soul. There was no wind, the sails hung limp. The ship lolled on lazy, turgid seas, and the storm was coming. A sailor approached with a tin cup filled with water, lifted it up to Torvald, who took it and brought it to Karsa's scabbed, crusted lips. The brackish liquid entered his mouth, burning like acid. He drew his head away from the cup. Torvald was speaking in low tones, words that slowly grew comprehensible to Karsa. Long lost to us. Only your beating heart and the rise and fall of your chest told us you still lived. It has been weeks and weeks, my friend. You'd keep hardly anything down. There's almost nothing left of you. You're showing bones where no bones should be. And then this damned becalming, day after day. Not a cloud in the sky until 3 bells passed. 3 bells when you stirred, Karsa Orlong. When you tilted your head back and began screaming behind your gag. Here, more water. You must drink. Karsa, they're saying you've called this storm. Do you understand? They want you to send it away. They'll do anything. They'll unchain you, set you free. Anything, friend. Anything at all. Just send this unholy storm away. Do you understand? Ahead, he could see now, the seas were exploding with each lash of the black, monstrous chains, twisting spouts of water skyward as each chain retreated upward once more. The billowing, heaving clouds seemed to lean forward over the ocean, closing on their position from all sides now. Karsa saw the Malazan captain descend from the foredeck, the blue-tinged skin on his face a sickly grayish hue. He said, "This is no male blessed squall, Daru, meaning it don't belong." He jerked a trembling finger at Karsa, then said, "Tell him he's running out of time. Tell him to send it away. Once he does that, we can negotiate." "Tell him, damn you," Torvald shouted. "I have been, Captain, but how in Hood's name do you expect him to send anything away when I'm not even sure he knows where he is? Worse, we don't even know for sure if he's responsible." The captain said, "Let's see, shall we?" Then spun round and gestured. A score of crewmen rushed forward, axes in hand. Torvald was dragged down and thrown to the deck. The axes chopped through the heavy ropes binding the platform to the mast. More crew came forward then. A ramp was laid out, angled up to the starboard gunwale. Log rollers were positioned beneath the platform as it was roughly lowered. Torvald cried out, "Wait, you can't!" The captain growled, "We can." Torvald shouted, "At least unchain him!" The captain said, "Not a chance, Torvald," then grabbed a passing sailor by the arm and said, "Find everything this giant owned. All that stuff confiscated from the slave master. It's all going with him. Hurry, damn you." Chains ripped the seas on all sides, close enough to lift spray over the ship, each detonation causing the hull, masts, and rigging to tremble. Karsa stared up at the tumbling storm clouds as the platform was dragged along the rollers up the ramp. Torvald shouted, "Those chains will sink it." The captain said, "Maybe, maybe not." Torvald asked, "What if it lands the wrong way up?" The captain said, "Then he drowns, and Mail can have him." Torvald shouted, "Karsa, damn you, cease playing your game of mindlessness. Say something." The warrior croaked out 2 words, but the noise that came from his lips was unintelligible even to him. The captain asked, "What did he say?" Torvald screamed, "I don't know! Karsa, damn you, try again!" He did, yielding the same guttural noise. He began repeating the same 2 words over and over again, as the sailors pushed and pulled the platform up onto the gunwale until it was balanced precariously, half over the deck, half over the sea. Directly above him, as he uttered his 2 words once more, Karsa watched the last patch of clear sky vanish, like the closing of a tunnel mouth. A sudden plunge into darkness, and Karsa knew it was too late, even as, in the sudden terror-stricken silence, his words came out clear and audible. "Go away." From overhead, chains snapped down, massive, plunging, reaching directly for, it seemed, Karsa's own chest. A blinding flash, a detonation, the splintering crackle of masts toppling, spars and rigging crashing down. The entire ship was falling away beneath Karsa, beneath the platform itself, which slid wildly down the length of the gunwale before crunching against the foredeck railing, pivoting, then plunging for the waves below. He stared down at the water's sickly green, heaving surface. The entire platform shuddered in its fall as the cargo ship's hull rolled up and struck its edge. Karsa caught an upside-down glimpse of the ship, its deck torn open by the impact of the huge chains, its 3 masts gone, the twisted forms of sailors visible in the wreckage. Then he was staring up at the sky, at a virulent, massive wound directly overhead. A fierce impact, then darkness.
This is absolutely epic imagery here. This storm is happening off in the distance, but they're sitting in calm. These chains, lightning, whatever, water spouts, the red dust is filling the air. This was like a very, very great image reading through this.
That change from what you would normally expect to see through sorcery, some type of electricity or something swirling or something like that, for it to manifest as chains is really cool.
Yeah. On my first read through, I was wondering if this was the Ototaro crazed mage that was fighting with Culp. But I think I'm wrong in that.
100%. I had the same confusion about it. The sorcery is different. I think in that case, it was more of the traditional type of sea storm that we're used to seeing.
Okay.
There was a lot of lightning, if I remember correctly, a lot of wind. In this case, literal chains are coming out of the sky, manifesting and whipping, breaking things. But I very clearly remember getting confused because they're both over the ocean. From a positioning perspective, this would be to the east of Ototaro Island, and that other storm would be on the west side.
Okay.
Because Genebacus lies to the east of Ototaro Island, which lies to the east of 7 cities. So that mage would have been on the western side of Ototaro Island because Culp and all them were trying to go that route to get to the mainland. And then also from a timing perspective, this is 3-4 months after the fall of Pale. To answer your question, Torvald said it's been weeks and weeks since Karsa was awake. Say 2 months again. So it's been a month since Silver Lake to get to Malanteus. And then again, they went to Genebaris and switched over. And now they're out on the ocean, it seems.
Okay. Another thing that came to me, there's a section back in chapter 2 when Karsa, Delim, and Bioroth are discussing something, I believe around the time that before they release Calm, the Forquerle Sail. They had mentioned that the Teblor elders work magic, but only rarely. Since the awakening of the faces in the rock, sorcery arrived as a visitation locked within the confines of sleep or trance. And Karsa kind of suspected this was just a bunch of elaborate inventions to weave bold colors into the tale. But with what we see here, it seems completely accurate. Like everything that they thought might have been just stories seems very, very true.
To tie back just a couple paragraphs ago where we were talking about what changed between we're going to abandon you and now we're going to maybe give you another chance.
I
think you're right. This was a great find. Karsa was in a trance. He's meeting with gods, not gods, whatever. And he manifests whatever sorcery is going on here with these chains. That caused them to say, okay, maybe we won't. Let's see what happens here, because these chains are converging on the ship. We can see it's breaking the ship apart, and maybe Karsa does have a chance to fight back.
That's good. I didn't pick that up, that is what changed their minds, because this is all kind of happening at the same time.
It seemed to be back to back. Maybe that visitation was over a period of time because Karsa was mindless forever in a trance, whatever's going on with him.
Right. Okay. Good.
His eyes opened to a faint gloom, the desultory lap of waves, the sodden boards beneath him creaking as the platform rocked to someone else's movement. Thumps, low gasping mutters. Karsa groaned. The joints of every limb felt torn inside. Torvald said, "Karsa," and crawled into view. Karsa asked, What has happened?" The shackles remained on Torvald's wrists. The chains connected on the other end to arm-length, roughly broken fragments of the deck. He said, "Easy for you, sleeping through all the hard work." He grumbled as he moved into a sitting position, pulling his arms around his knees, then went on. "This sea's a lot colder than you'd think, and these chains didn't help. I've nearly drowned a dozen times, but you'll be glad to know we now have 3 water casks and a bundle of something that might be food. I've yet to untie its bindings. Oh, and your sword and armor, both of which float, of course." The sky overhead looked unnatural. Luminous gray shot through with streaks of darker pewter, and the water smelled of clay and silts. Karsa asked, "Where are we?" Torvald said, "I was hoping you'd know. It's pretty damn clear to me that you called the storm down on us. That's the only explanation for what happened." Karsa said, "I called nothing." Torvald said, "Those chains of lightning, Karsa, not one missed its target. Not a single Malazan was left standing. The ship was falling apart. Your platform had landed right side up and was drifting away. I was still working free when Silgar and 3 of his men climbed out of the hold, dragging their chains with them. The hull was riven through, coming apart all around the bastards. Only one had drowned." Karsa said, "I am surprised they didn't kill us." Torvald said, "You were out of reach, at least to start with. Me they threw overboard. A short while later, after I'd made it to the platform, I saw them in the lone surviving dory. They were rounding the sinking wreck, and I knew they were coming for us. Then somewhere on the other side of the ship, beyond my sight, something must have happened, because they never reappeared. They vanished, dory and all. The ship then went down, though a lot of stuff has been coming back up. So I've been resupplying. Collecting rope and wood, too, everything I could drag over here. Karsa, your platform is slowly sinking. None of the water casks are full, so that's adding some buoyancy, and I'll be slipping more planks and boards under it, which should help, even so."
So right here, I guess this is what's adding to my confusion, certainly on like those initial read-throughs where I'm kind of going faster. But Torvald says chains of lightning, and earlier it just says that they were chains, black chains. I think that's what's adding to it. But I also wonder if Torvald says chains of lightning, does he see it differently? Is it possible that he's actually just seeing it as lightning?
I guess it's possible, but I think it's coming from the sky. It's coming out of a cloud of some type, so maybe that's the best way to convey it.
Okay.
It looks like chains, but how else would you describe chains lashing out of a cloud? I guess it's just the way you know how to describe it.
I think you're right. Maybe just the way that he's thinking of how to describe it.
Karsa said, "Break my chains, Torvald Nom." Torvald nodded, then ran a hand through his dripping, tangled hair. He said, "I've checked on that, friend. It will take some work." Karsa asked, "Is there land about?" Torvald glanced over at the tableau, then said, "Karsa, this isn't the Meningale Ocean. We're somewhere else. Is there land nearby?" "None in sight. I overheard Silgar talking about a warren, which is one of those paths a sorcerer uses. He said he thought we'd all entered one. There may be no land here. None at all. Hood knows there's no wind, and we don't seem to be moving in any direction. The wreckage of the ship is still all around us. In fact, it almost pulled us under with it. Also, this sea is fresh water. No, I wouldn't want to drink it. It's full of silt. No fish, no birds, no signs of life anywhere." Karsa said, "I'd need water, food." Torvald crawled over to the wrapped bundle he had retrieved. He said, "Water we have. Food, No guarantees. Karsa, did you call upon your gods or something? Karsa said no. Torvald asked, what started you screaming like that then? Karsa said, a dream. Torvald asked, a dream? Karsa said, yes. Is there food? Torvald said, I'm not sure. It's mostly padding around a small wooden box. Karsa listened to ripping sounds as Torvald pulled away the padding. He said, there's a mark branded on it. Looks Maranth, I think. The lid was pried free. He said, more padding, and a dozen clay balls with wax plugs on them. Oh, Beru Fend. The Daru backed away from the package. He said, Hood's dripping tongue. I think I know what these are. Never seen one, but I've heard about them. Who hasn't? Well, he laughed suddenly, then continued. If Silgar reappears and comes after us, he's in for a surprise. So's anyone else who might mean trouble. He edged forward again and carefully replaced the padding, then the lid. Karsa asked, what have you found? Torvald said, alchemical munitions, weapons of war. You throw them, preferably as far as you can. The clay breaks and the chemicals within explode. What you don't want to happen is have one break in your hand or at your feet, because then you're dead. The Malazans have been using these in the Genebacan campaign.
So still no real clear definition on how far to throw a cusser, huh? Unless that's all it says on the instruction manual, throw as far as possible.
Sound advice. I still remember the scene when the bridge burners entered Kapustan and they had the cussers go off in front of as well as behind them, back to back.
Scary stuff.
Karsa said, water, please. Torvald said, right. There's a ladle here, somewhere. Found it. A moment later, Torvald hovered over Karsa, and the Teblor drank, slowly, all the water the ladle contained. Torvald asked, better? Karsa said, yes. Torvald asked, more? Karsa said, not yet. Free me. Torvald said, I need to get back into the water first, Karsa. I need to push some planks under this raft. Karsa said, very well. All right, we're going to stop there this week, and we will continue the chapter next week. For standout moments.
Karsa being strung up in what sounds like gibbeting to me is pretty terrible. Limbs chained, the weight of your body pulling on all of your joints. No, thank you.
That sounds horrible. Without being able to move to get some circulation going, your hands would go numb, your feet would go numb. Mm-hmm. When I wake up in the morning, it's bad enough, and I have to take about 10 minutes to get going again. Think about after months of immobility what it'd be like to try and move.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you haven't done a certain exercise in a while, and then you feel like your ligaments and joints and stuff kind of aching after the next couple of days, this has got to be infinitely worse.
Yeah, agreed.
The reemergence of some famous Malazans, Dujek, the bridge burners. I mean, we didn't get to see them specifically, but that they're kind of in the timeline. They seem to be in the area. It gets me excited, and I hope we get to see a little bit more of them.
We'll see if he's going to go back to some old characters or if he's going to keep going with the new ones.
Mm-hmm. And another thing, the amazing visuals of this storm that ends up destroying the ship and pretty much everybody on it. Very, very cool.
That whole concept of, especially you going back to the earlier chapter and bringing up how sorcery comes in a trance or a dream, I think that was really key to this, and it brought a lot of context around what's going on with the storm that I appreciated. Yeah, the visuals of the chains lashing out at the ship would be crazy to see. So cool. Mm-hmm. How thick are these chains to you? I guess let me ask you that.
I mean, I hadn't really thought too much about it, but when they say, I think they say, like huge chains, I get the impression that these things are maybe 10 to 15 feet wide, like something really, really massive.
Yeah, I'm thinking like an anchor chain from an aircraft carrier or some massive cargo ship, something like that, right? Yeah. Where it's like when they let it go, it's like, it's like just going
causing sparks and everything as it's flying off the ship. Yeah,
something huge like that.
Exactly.
Really cool with the red dust and chaotic imagery.
Yeah. The fact that it sounds like they're in the nascent, that as Torvald was mentioning, Silgar said that they think they went into a warren.
Mm-hmm. And then it's fresh water. It's silt laden. It sounds a lot like where Troll was at the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll see what's going on with this.
Right.
All right. Great job today, Dane.
Good job.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
Just that it seems like we're coming into some threads that are all going to start to kind of weave together. Some different timelines that are going to start to cross. And I'm just very excited. I'm very excited to get into it.
Yeah. I love it when the seeds have been planted and the plant is now growing.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
This is
love to see it.
Kind of the same thing why Memories of Ice was one of my favorite books. Initially, my favorite book through a lot of the series. is because that seemed to be the first point you start to get some crossover from the first two books. Some questions start to get answered. This is another part of that to me, where things that have happened in the previous books, they all start to kind of merge. And it's really, really fun to see. Like you said, the seeds have been planted. However long it took you to get through those before, whether it was months or weeks as you're reading through the books, and to now start to see what comes of those things that you were left wondering, what's happening? You just kind of leave it back there.
The grand journey.
Yes.
It's great. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.